Three, two, one. Love them or hate them, investment properties are a popular way to grow wealth and invest your money. But how do you know if it's for you? And does Lethbridge even have a good rental market? Hello, and welcome to YQL Real Talk, where we talk all things related to living in Lethbridge and the Lethbridge real estate market. My name's Kurtis Hawkins, and I'm a realtor right here in Lethbridge, Alberta. And with me today is my beautiful wife, Chelsea, who is the producer of this podcast. So today we are talking about rentals.
Investment properties.
Rental investment properties.
Specifically in Lethbridge, of course.
Chelsea and I have two rental properties. We have one in Colehurst and one on the west side. People always say, Colehurst, really? I didn't think it'd be a good rental market out there. But it's been great, and the people that we get in there usually stay for multiple years. Mm-hmm. So having these two rental properties have been the best investment that we have ever made, and has been some of the least stressful, believe it or not. These have actually been the least stressful investment that we've ever made too, just because they've been so steady and reliable. They've been work, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's an easy way to go, but it has been a very good investment, and for the most part, pretty stress-free.
I guess spoiler alert is that we do think that rentals in Lethbridge are a good investment, and that the Lethbridge rental market is good. Like, why? What are some things that contribute to a good rental market? In Lethbridge? Specifically.
Well, there is a huge student population. So between September and when does school get out? June?
Something like that.
May or something. So within the 8 months out of the year that school's in, the population increases by at least 20%. So students take up at least 20% of the population in Lethbridge. So when they come here, everybody needs a place to live. Yes, they're on campus, some of them, but there's a lot of parents and a lot of students that come up and buy condos for their kids to live in, and they also rent, obviously. Mm-hmm. Chelsea and I usually don't rent to these students, and not that we don't rent to students at all, but we try not to just because we want to have a full year lease. But that being said, they do suck up such a big inventory of the rentals in Lethbridge that there's always good demand for rentals.
We have rented to students in the past on many occasions. What filters out students for us most of the time is that we're looking for people we favor, and upfront during the application process, we always say that we favor people who are going to be staying with us long term. We're looking for multiple years, or at very least a full year. And there are a small portion of students who come in and say that they only want 8 months or try to get out of their lease 8 months in. But there are lots who stay during the summer as well. So we've got nothing against student renters. We've been student renters.
So on the investment side, Lethbridge is very good for rentals because houses are affordable, and you can actually afford to buy rental properties here. Mm-hmm. Whether that's a condo, an apartment, those are things that are like ultra affordable. Like you can buy apartments, a 2-bedroom apartment here for $100,000 to $150,000, which is super reasonable, and you can find a good renter in there, and it's just going to keep building equity for you month after month. On the flip side, you can also look at a single-family detached home that's either suited or not suited, illegally or legally. Maybe we should talk about legal and illegal suites later too.
Yeah, that's good.
But I think the biggest bang for your buck is finding a suited, doesn't matter if it's legal or legal, but finding a good suited property that you can get rent from the upstairs and the downstairs, or something of that nature, or if it's a duplex side by side or whatever it is. But I've found that the biggest bang for your buck, and the one that's actually going to make you a little bit of profit each month, not a lot of profit, and people need to set their expectations for that, but the ones that have a single family detached suite up and down, for example, that's probably going to make you the most money.
They do seem to be the gold standard for rentals and the types of properties that are sought after the most. That's what we've purchased. We love our suited places. I do think that it's interesting when we tell people that we have rental properties, how varied people's opinions are. Some people have them and love them. Some people have had them in the past and have these absolutely terrible horror stories. And what always boggles my mind is that there is a portion of the people that are like, no, I would not touch that with a 10-foot pole. I don't want the headache. So for somebody who's actually looking into buying a place, like over the course of a year, what does the work look like that goes into the place?
Well, first of all, just to add to what you just said, I think rental properties are like vaccines. People love them or hate them right now.
What?
Well, really, if you talk to somebody about a rental property, they either say, nope, I hate people. The people who actually have the biggest opinion about them are people who don't even have rentals or have never done it before.
Yeah.
They just say, nope, I know I'm going to hate it. I hate people. I don't want to deal with people all day. And the people who have rental properties, for the most part, unless they've had some crazy horror story, I think like them. We don't have one of those crazy horror stories, knock on wood, so hopefully that never happens. But there are people, again, who have had rentals that say they would never do them again because they've had bad things happen in their rentals. So basically for us, if you want to know what it looks like, day to day, year to year type of thing, and what it's like getting a rental property, first you have to go and find the right rental property. And I'm actually doing this tonight. I have showings with somebody who's looking for their second rental, so that's fun. So after you find your house, then you're gonna have to find renters. So the best place in Lethbridge that we find, we used to use Kijiji to put our ads out. Kijiji's dead. It's like the new Instagram.
I don't know when that happened, that all of a sudden it just died.
Because they started charging to put your ads on there.
Oh.
And Facebook is still free.
Yeah, Facebook swooped in for sure.
We always put our ads out on Facebook Marketplace every single time. Of course, if we know somebody, lots of people like to put in renters that they know or like friends of friends. To us, we have done it. We've had somebody in there and it was fine that we knew, but it's just kind of weird. Just because in case something happens or you got to be the bad landlord that says, hey, no parties, guys. Yeah. And they're your friends. They're going to be like, oh, that's okay. It's just Kurtis. But yeah, I'd rather just have somebody that there's no affiliation there. It's just so, not that I'm going to be a mean guy or something, but you just don't want to have that weird, awkward conversation with one of your friends, right? So we always put those ads out on Kijiji or on Facebook Marketplace. That's where we've always found the best candidates and the most people. And then from there you have what it's like in Lethbridge right now. The rental market is insane. So we put this ad on our last place on Facebook. We probably had over 100 people message us on Facebook. Yeah. So there's no way we can go through all of those. Like, it's just overwhelming. So what we decided to do was basically an open house. And we said, okay, we just had like a canned template almost and said, okay, on this day at this time for an hour, we're having an open house. If you want to come see it so we can meet people in person, because I always think that's important, and pick up an application. And then basically, for the most part, we kind of pick people as we meet them. Not like we still get them to fill out an application and we get their application back and review it. But just from meeting somebody, you can kind of tell, to me anyway, if they're a good renter. And you just ask the right questions like, what do you do for work? How was your last place? Why are you leaving your last place? And if their answer is something like, well, my landlord's an asshole and I hate landlords, then you probably don't want to have them rent from you. But if they're just moving because of work or whatever, then I don't know. There's no real right or wrong way that we pick them. But a big one is if we tell them that they're going to do this open house, right there, half of them are going to show up. Yeah. So yeah, they can send you an application online, but you can't meet them or anything. So there's a filtering process right there. Then when they get there, you can meet them, talk to them a little bit. And if you really like them, I'll jot names down of all the people that I have a good first impression with. I give them an application. Out of those people that I like and that I've given an application, only a handful of them will actually send the application back. So that's filtering it down already. And then, yeah, from there, if we get like 3 or 4 applications, then it gets a little bit tougher. But
I said this before, that we typically favor longevity. Longevity is what we've been looking for out of our tenants. So if there's 3 good applicants, my next question is, what's your 5-year plan looking like? Like, do you plan on being in Lethbridge? And
this is only because the market is so crazy and we really have our pick of good renters. It does get a little bit tougher when less people to choose from, but this is just our experience on our last one.
So the application process and dealing with people in that regard is maybe 3-4 days worth of time where you're meeting with people or you're following up with messages and stuff like that. And we do 1-year leases minimum. So over the course of like the application process and actually finding a tenant, that's 4 days out of the year that we have to dedicate some time to it.
Per unit.
So yes.
We do have 4 of them. So all of a sudden that's a month out of a year taken up dealing with rentals basically. But yeah, so then after you find your perfect renter, after you've done the big old application process and you find somebody that's going to move in, then once they do move in, you do a walkthrough with them and there's a checklist that you can go through and just they kind of look over the property and say, this is what it was like when you move in. And then as long as the home is in similar condition when they move out, that's how you can deal with their damage deposit. Once they're moved in, if your house is in good condition and there's nothing that's going wrong for the most part, and you have good renters and you have this, I don't know, all the stars align, you won't have to deal with a thing all year long.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to happen? No. There's always going to be times when you have to go and deal with things at your rentals.
I would say, like I said, if you're buying a house that's 30 years old, chances are interior maintenance is going to take up more of your time than if you're buying something a little bit newer. But like that's just dependent on the property, but interior maintenance is very, very minimal. I think out of our 4 units, there's maybe a handful of times a year where we have to go out and repair plumbing or look at anything that's happened in a place.
Looking at the type of house that you have too, if you're buying a rental that has lots of grass in the yard, I can warn you now, your renters will tell you they'll do it. They're not going to do it. It's very rare unless you have a guy that's like, I just love making my lawn look like a golf green, then that's awesome. Then they'll do it for you. But for the majority of it, you're going to have to go out there and do the mowing, or you can pay somebody to get out there and do that exterior maintenance. And then like any house, there's always some maintenance that you're going to have to do, whether that's making sure your roof is ready to go, downspouts are down, siding's all good. We talked about landscaping already. So there's always maintenance to do. So I would recommend being somewhat of a handy person if you're going to get a rental. Mm-hmm. If not, make sure you have a good roster of people that you can send in if there is something that happens. Like there are times when plumbing breaks and you got to get somebody like a plumber in there. I know how to do some plumbing, and I'll do plumbing in my own house. And if it freaking leaks, then at least I'm there to fix it right away. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen either. But in a rental property, when you're not living in it and you can't tell if it's going to leak again, or you can't keep a close eye on it, you know, your renters aren't going to keep a close eye on it. So that's when we hire a professional to go in and just take care of it. You know, it cost maybe $200, I think was like the highest bill we've had because there was a sink that was leaking. Really wasn't that big of a deal to get somebody in. And is it that much of a pain to have to call a plumber to go in and fix something? No.
No, like I said, these things tend to happen only a handful of times a year. Interior maintenance, you already said it, but I do think that exterior maintenance is the bigger beast. And you can write it into a lease that your tenants are responsible for exterior maintenance.
They're still not going to do it.
But you should never, 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 never expect your tenants to take the same level of care in the place that you would. We even say to our renters, we have one house that's zero-scaped. We did this because we don't want to mow lawns. It still gets weeds in there. So we say, if the weeds start to come up and you guys don't have time to take care of them, like, it's okay. Just send us a quick text message and we'll come over. And they won't even do that. And I think I'm not faulting them. Like, I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that. I think it's like they're scared to contact the landlord. It's like, it's a bad thing if they have to reach out to the landlord, but that's not the way that we look at it whatsoever. Like, we want to help you out. We want to make sure that the property stays nice.
Which is awesome because they don't want to be a pain in the ass, but
yeah.
We also want our place to look good for the next people. So
yes. So I think exterior maintenance is a much bigger beast than interior maintenance, and you do need to be going by your property somewhat regularly, especially over the summer months when it needs more attention.
But the question is all of this extra work worth it?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, if you just do a calculation, it all depends on how expensive the home is that you're buying. But let's say you're buying a house worth $350,000 every year. You're paying off a certain percentage of your mortgage. I would like to see an actual calculation about how much every year you're paying off of the mortgage. But the way we look at it is on one of our properties, the mortgage payment's like $800 a month. And if that mortgage is getting paid off and then some at the end of the 20 years, just by keeping renters in there, like Chelsea said, you're probably, if you added up how many days a year do you think we work on our rentals? If you add them up on one unit.
On one unit? Maybe
20?
Yeah.
Like less than a month.
Yes.
So if you take a month's worth of work every year, and like, let's say you're paying off, let me do a quick calculation. Let's say you bought a house for $350,000. Mm-hmm. Your down payment is 20%. That's $70,000. So $350 minus $70,000 is $280, and it's going to take you 25 years to pay that off. Mm-hmm. That means you're paying off $11,000 each month for 20 days of work. Each year, sorry. So for 20 days of work, you're going to make $11,000. Mm-hmm. Seems worth it to me. Yes. It takes people, you know, if like, let's say you're making $60,000 a year divided by 12, it's going to take you 2 and some months to make that up. And this is like pretty passive income.
Absolutely.
So is it worth it? Abso-freaking-lutely. And the thing is, like, that's pretty good money. But once you have multiple properties, then all of a sudden it goes from, at the same price, let's say they're all $350, you're paying $11,000 off each year off of your mortgage. One rental is $11,000. 2 rentals is $22,000. 3 rentals, $33,000. And that's the thing, is that you can keep multiplying these and still have time in your life where you can't go get 4 jobs to quadruple your income, but you can go and get 4 rentals, right? But I think a big misconception with making money on rentals is that each month you're just raking in a big dollar amount each month. And that's not the case, especially right now in the Lethbridge housing market. To me, it's very easy to find one to break even on. It's very hard to find one to turn a profit on. Basically, if you bought them 5 years ago, you're making some decent money on them. But if you're buying one right now, you're probably going to break even. You might make $200-$300 a month, which, there's this perception out there that landlords are super wealthy and they're just making this cash flow every month. It's not really true. Yeah, you're paying off the mortgage, but it's basically just, for us, it's just basically covering the bills. Because we did buy our Colhurst one years ago, we are making a little bit off that one, but we bought one 2 years ago that we're just barely breaking even on. We make a little bit of money each month, but then as soon as there's something that comes up that needs to be fixed, we basically save all that money and it just goes back into the house. So we're definitely not the illusion of sitting on a beach somewhere because you have 10 rental properties is ridiculous. Like, just get that out of your head right now. It's definitely all about making that long-term wealth. Obviously, it's paying off your mortgage like we just talked about, but the other thing that you need to factor in as well is your appreciation over the next 20 years.
So I think there's 2 types of ways to look at getting into rental properties out of what you need out of it. Are you looking for monthly cash flow, or are you looking for long-term wealth?
Yeah, so if let's say you had, and I have this actually quite often with out-of-town buyers, they have, let's make numbers simple, and let's say that there's a rental property out there for $100,000, and the clients come to me and say, listen, we have $100,000 cash, we want to buy a rental property. And I say, the first thing that I usually say is, okay, are you prioritizing cash flow, like you said, or do you want long-term wealth? Because if you want long-term wealth and over cash flow, then you shouldn't be buying 1 rental property with your $100,000. You should be buying 4 rental properties with your $100,000. And basically how it works is you can take that $100,000 and buy 1 rental property, and it's paid for. There's no mortgage. So you're going to have to pay a little bit of expenses, taxes, heat, utilities, blah, blah, blah. And you'll probably make, let's say your mortgage payment would be $800. So you're going to make $800 every month off of that property. But it's probably, which if you're prioritizing cash flow, maybe that's good for you. But in my opinion, it's not the best way to spend that money. The best thing that you can do is take that $100,000 and put down 4 down payments of $20,000 on 4 properties. And all of a sudden you've taken that $100,000 that you've had and you've just turned it into $400,000 in equity. You don't own that equity right now, but over the next 20 years, and that's paid off, assuming 0 appreciation or any cash flow at the end of that 20 years, which is a long time. But again, we're playing the long game here and we're building equity, not cash flow. Over that 20 years, you're going to end up with at least $400,000 off of 100, which is pretty incredible.
That seems absolutely worth it to me.
Again, let's say this was a single family detached home. Obviously, we're using fake numbers here at $100,000. But if there's appreciation over 20 years, let's say your house has doubled in value. All of a sudden you took $100,000 and you just turned it into $800,000 or $1 million or whatever. And we're talking about real numbers. You can multiply this by like 3, because if you're looking at a single family detached home that's suited, you're probably around $350 to $400. So if you had $400,000, you could buy one $400,000 house, or you could buy 4 or 3 of these other ones. That's like $2 million in 20 years, assuming 0 appreciation. Wild.
I love it. I can see from your face and your voice that you get fired up about this.
I do. And like, this is obviously what we believe in and what we're doing with our money. So when I tell this to people, I think depending on the person or how they know me, they sometimes have their guard up with realtors about what's your end game. You just want me to buy 4 houses so that I get paid for buying, or for helping you buy 4 houses, which is true. I do get paid to help you buy houses. That's my job. But like, I want these clients to be happy with me long term, so that they continue to buy houses from me and they refer me and all that sort of thing. So if you're not going to be happy with these investments, then obviously it's a lose-lose for everybody. And I'm not just looking at this one sale. And how many realtors have knowledge like this? I'm sure lots do. I'm sure lots don't. So, and the fact that we actually have experience with it goes a long way as well.
I think you're absolutely right. It's a fine line between like, am I selling you on this? But I know in this case,
I feel like I'm selling people on it because it is like, it's a thing. It's going to make you money over the long term.
Yeah.
But again, this goes back to like the beginning of the podcast where people don't have, they have very strong opinions at it at the beginning. So if they sit down with me for 25 minutes and listen to this podcast, hopefully it convinces them otherwise, because there's a lot of bullshit that you have to put up with being a landlord, but over 20 years, it's going to be well worth it for you. And any headaches that you have to deal with in the meantime, things like getting your place trashed or any insurance claims that you're going to have, yes, they're going to be stressful at the time, but if you keep that long-term vision in mind, it's going to pay off. And that's like basically what it's like being an entrepreneur. Even if you have a business, there's going to be shit times like a pandemic. There's going to be employees that quit. There's going to be a million things that goes wrong being an entrepreneur and being a business owner. And when you're a landlord, you got to treat it like a business and look at the long term.
I do think the word landlord gets a bad rap too. And I do think there is this perception, like you said, landlords sitting on the beach collecting money while here I am working and paying off your mortgage. And I know, again, we talked about this in previous episodes of the podcast, the Toronto, Vancouver headlines often get translated to smaller markets, even though we're not comparing apples to apples. And they don't think that Lethbridge has this seedy landlord.
Well, unless you're a slumlord.
But that's individuals taking.
Yes.
Yes, that's
But
long.
at the end of the day, it's like the same thing as me providing a service as a realtor. Like as a landlord, you're providing a service to these people who need a place to live. And if they can't afford to buy, or they're only in town for a year, or they're a student, they're not going to buy right now. They need to rent a place. So if you can provide a safe place for students or a family or whatever, like I'm doing my part, they're doing their part. It's a win-win for everybody. Like if they're not renting from me, they're going to rent from somebody else. And in my opinion, I think we're pretty good landlords, and we keep our places clean and tidy, and we get good renters because of that. And it just snowballs, and they're happy when we rent. Hopefully, like the best thing that happens in our scenario, somebody rents from us, saves us money, and they buy a house. I've told everybody that moves into one of our rentals that if you want to buy a house, feel free to break your lease as long as you're buying it with me. Because like, even though they are renting from us, I do see the importance of people buying a house. So if I can help people on that journey, and if it starts with a rental, then great.
So is there anybody that you think shouldn't be a landlord, shouldn't get into investment properties?
Honest answer is no. There's a lot of people that, like, I know lots of people that just say, I hate people and I don't want to be a landlord. Get over it. I hate roofing. I used to roof in university. And that is one job I do not want to do again, because it's physical, it's outdoors, it's dirty work, your body hurts all the time. And if I was still doing it, I would probably be a pretzel right now. It's like such tough work. And being a landlord is learning to deal with people. And it's not difficult. Like I guess don't be a landlord if you're going to rent out horrible units that people don't want to live in, and you want to like rent to people who are going to trash the place. Like in my opinion, if you have a bad rental and you don't know how to fix it up, or you're not going to fix it up, don't be a landlord. If you're going to have a nice place that people want to live in and they're going to treat well, be a landlord, because you're providing that good service. If you're looking to like strike the lottery and you think that this is going to be your ticket to, I don't know, sitting on the beach, don't be a landlord. If you want to build long-term wealth, like literally anybody can do it. And there's steps you can follow. There's things that you can do to help mitigate any risks. But I do think that literally everybody, if they have the means, should be investing in real estate. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think it is, but I'm biased.
So in conclusion, buy some rental properties.
This is not a sell.
It's not a sell, but I do feel very strongly about this. Obviously, sorry I got so excited about it, and I'm selling this really hard, but it's awesome. Maybe we got to talk about
Ooh,
Airbnbs.
illegal and No, we can talk about different episodes.
I know we got to bring that up in a later episode, so we will do that. If you guys have any questions about this, or you want to reach out to me specifically about any questions about being a landlord or getting into the rental market, please let me know. All my contact info will be in the show notes, or you can send me a text message or a call, 403-892-6991. That's my personal cell number. If you guys like this podcast, this is a pretty new podcast. This is only episode number 3, so we would appreciate if you could rate this on whatever service you're listening to this podcast on, or if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button and hit that subscribe button so we can see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.